What's up, Knight fans? Welcome once again to Holding Court with Todd Dagenais, along with the coach. I'm Jeff Sharon, and what a weekend it was for UCF. The Knights get a split against the preseason top two teams rated by the coaches in the conference. And coach, you know, SMU, Tulsa, we knew what we were getting coming into this weekend. Overall, before we look at the matches one by one, give me your overall impressions of the week.
We did what we needed to do. You know, we went out there and I thought we performed well in both matches. You know, performed well enough to take care of SMU, and Tulsa's pretty good. And but I think overall, the one thing that we take away from that is the gap between them and us last year was astronomical, and I think that gap is closing fast. You know, we're not there yet. We're going to try to get there by the end of the year. We may or may not, but the gap is closing fast, and we're pretty excited about that.
We start with the victory over SMU that UCF got. And, you know, we talked about how SMU is a very good team, picked preseason #2 in the conference. But it looked like I thought we made pretty short order out of them in that match. It's always tough in conference, but that was a pretty good team to beat on that Friday night.
No, that was a big win for us. Obviously, it's a team that we haven't beaten since 2008, my very first year here, when we knocked them out in the first round of the conference tournament. I don't know that it was short order. I think if you look deep inside the numbers, it was a lot closer than what the score or the stats even say. We were able to hold some key players in check for them, and I thought we were able to have some of our key players really step up. And so, and even with all that, it was a close match. So it's just one of those. It was nice to be at home. That's a match that you have to win at home. You know, you don't know if you necessarily get that on the road or not. But we put ourselves in position to win, and we took advantage of it. And, we really didn't make any mistakes near the end of the sets, like we'd done in the past, so I'm glad to say that's behind us.
And then you move on to Tulsa, of course, which, you know, we knew how tough Tulsa was going to be and all the talent that they have. We talked last week about Tyler Henderson, how good she was. She had a very good match, but also all the people around her had a very good match. The match ended in 4, UCF coming up short against Tulsa, but if there was ever a match where I thought that it was deceptive, I think where the score was deceptive, I think it was that one.
Yeah, you know, the first set, I think we just kind of, it was like a sparring round, and we won the first round. The second set, it was just kind of a weird set. I think that we just kind of discombobulated a little bit. I thought we maybe made some mistakes. Maybe not so much from the player's perspective, but from the bench perspective, us as coaches, we probably should have done some things differently. Maybe made some switches a little bit sooner, changed some schemes a little bit sooner, but they were working in the first set. And so, you know, we look back on that, we learn from that, we make notes. When you get in those matches, you kind of poke and prod, and you kind of see what might work, and we make feverish notes, and we know the next time around some of the things that we're going to do a little bit differently. But you know, once we get into that third set, you know, I felt like we had a chance, and we had a swing in the fourth set to extend that into 5. And so I think overall we didn't play great, and I'm sure Tulsa will tell you they didn't play great, but it was a good old-fashioned Conference USA backyard brawl, and between two pretty good teams. I'll tell you this, that was probably the loosest and most relaxed I've seen Tulsa. I think the new coaches really brought in a very casual, very kind of relaxed atmosphere, and it seems to be suiting them pretty well. I thought that they went out there and they buckled down when they needed to. You know, I thought we held Tyler Henderson in check for about 2.5 sets. But once we got into the 4th set, they set her practically every ball, and I want to say she probably hit 7 for 7 or 8 for 8 for kills, and just blasted her hitting percentage up over 400, just like that. That's what she does. She just takes over matches and decides it's my time, jump on my back, and I'm going to lead you. And that's why Tulsa is Tulsa. Both their setters, I thought, did a nice job. They run the 6-2 well, and you know, there's makings there again of a Sweet 16 level team. So, you know, they're number 1. We said they were, and they are what we said they would be. I just thought we had some chances. We didn't take advantage of it, and, you know, hopefully next time around we'll see those opportunities and seize them.
You know, from my perspective watching that match, it seemed as though these two teams were just as even as they could possibly be. As many weapons as Tulsa had, we had our own share of weapons and going 1-for-1 against them. And also, I thought that we did a very good job of capitalizing on some of the mistakes that they made, as well as they did with us as well. It was about as even a match, I think, that as we've seen all season, I thought.
Yeah, maybe that's right. I don't know. I feel like they're better, but not nearly as much as what it was last year.
Yeah.
You know, we're a team that can still significantly get better, and that's something that we're relying on as we head, you know, later on in the year. We play those guys right at the end of the season, and I'm hoping that we're a completely different team at that point, and then maybe the gap will have closed even more. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, right now they're battle tested. That's a team that lost in 5 to Illinois, who we'll talk about later as the #1 team in the country. And you know, they were up 2-0 on Illinois, and they had the swing to win it 3-0 and just couldn't convert it. So they're pretty darn good. And for us, for people to think that we were that close to them, that's a compliment to us. We'll take that as a compliment because they are who we are trying to become this year.
Yeah. Now, one of the breakout performances from that match, and we'll talk about some of the individual highlight performances, we saw Dagenais Sardin really step up in that Tulsa match, kind of a secret weapon kind of thing that you unleashed on Tulsa there.
I don't know if she's such a secret. I think everybody that saw her playing club volleyball knew that she was going to probably be pretty good.
Yeah.
We just didn't know when. You know, as a staff, we sat down and we said, when's it going to happen? We figured, you know, maybe the first part of October she'd be ready to go. But she's about 2 weeks ahead of schedule. And at this point, we decided, look, we need to make the switch. We track the stats every day in practice. And every day her stats are getting better and better and better. And the thing that she does is she commands respect in the middle. People have to stay with her. They have to account for her. Yeah. And she opens up so much for the outside hitters when she's on like that. And people don't know she's an excellent back row player. That's not something, we haven't unleashed her in the back row yet. But she had her coming out party. And I think that it's still going to be a process of getting her up to speed, but she sure is a heck of a lot closer now than what she was on August 10th. And, you know, the nice thing for us, Jeff, is we've got 4 middles.
Yeah.
You know, and depending on the matchups, depending on the team that we're going to play, we can really cycle in any one of the 4. And so I'd like to say, hey, Dagenais Sardin's our starter, but it's going to depend on the matchup. Who are we playing? What are the matchups? You know, what does she give us that maybe somebody else doesn't? So she did a great job in that match when we needed her to. We knew that we had the matchups for her, and she took advantage of her opportunity, and you have to pay attention to that.
And that's a nice problem to have, I'm sure, as well for you guys as a coaching staff as well. Now, as far as some of the other individual performances that we've seen from UCF, another highlight for us, we've got some people moving up in the national rankings. Rachel Vuxen, very high in the national rankings, #1 at least in the conference in assists per set, and also number 21 nationally is Angelica Crump in kills per set. So now you're starting to see a lot more, you know, based on this start that we've talked about. Some individual performances that are really starting to get some national spotlight now for UCF.
And that's nice for us because now, you know, when you have those kinds of stats, you start getting, you know, all-American consideration for some of your players, and that's a sign that the program is maturing. When the team does well enough, the individuals can get some recognition like that, and you know, and that's all well and good. All that is just a sign of, again, what we've done, not who we are or where we're going. But it's just a nice affirmation that we're doing some things right.
Now, obviously, the eyes of Conference USA were focused squarely on Orlando this past weekend, but as we jump out and take a look at the national picture a little bit, there was one team that had a very, very good weekend this past weekend. That was the Southern California Trojans, who, of course, as you'll recall, we beat earlier this year. They beat #1 Cal and #2 Stanford in the same weekend. So that was a huge weekend for them, wasn't it?
Well, it's a huge weekend for them, of course. It's a huge weekend for us, too, because I think we talked about before, we need the Michigan States and the Pitts and the Southern Cals to run like rabbits now to help our RPI out. And you know, we're certainly their biggest fans right now. So for SC to beat Washington, Stanford, and Cal, #1, #2, and #4 in 3 straight matches, that's only going to be good for us. And I think, you know, you see that we're still getting some votes in the ABCA poll, and really it's completely on the strength of that victory and the success that USC has had since. And so we're really, really big USC Trojan fans right now, and we would not mind seeing them win that conference this year.
Now, one of the other things also, like you talked about a couple weeks ago, the sleeper team that's out there, the Illinois Fighting Illini are #1 now because #1 and #2 got knocked out. Illinois receiving, I think, 55 first-place votes. 5 teams are receiving first-place votes in the ABCA coaches poll, but you were right on the money. Illinois, right now, standing at #1.
Yeah, I thought they've had the schedule to allow them to get to the situation that they're in right now. They've won all their matches, and their only close loss, of course, was to Tulsa. And I think they're in the right place at the right time. They're going to be the beneficiary. I mean, first of all, they're a good team. Let's not slight them at all. They're a good team, and they're a Final Four caliber team without a doubt. But they're going to be the beneficiary of the fact that Cal, Stanford, and SC, and UCLA, and Washington are all going to beat up on each other this year and have a few losses. I think it's a sleeper team because I think they're really, really good. And they're going to have their opportunity to prove that in the upcoming weeks. They're going to get Nebraska and Minnesota and Penn State. And if they're able to survive that gauntlet, NCAA tournament will provide a whole nother challenge for them. So I think it's wide open. Is Illinois #1? Well, they are this week.
Yeah.
Who's #1 right now? I think it's a great national debate. I don't think anybody knows for sure. You're going to see a lot of people just jockeying for position over the next 10 weeks. And then we're going to figure it out in December, because I think for the first year I can't pick who's #1 anymore. There is no clue right now who #1 is, and it's going to change. It's going to be completely based on who's improving between now and the end of the year. So it's going to be interesting to see.
It's going to be fun once we get down to November. Now, as we finish up here, real quick, where does our RPI stand in all of this?
I think right now, of course, the official NCAA RPI hasn't come out yet.
Yeah.
But richkern.com does his unofficial RPI, and we know we're still in the top 50, 48, 49, something like that, which is good. That's where we need to be in November when it comes time for Selection Sunday. So we're right in the ballpark right now, still with 17 conference matches laying ahead of us. So we just have to worry about ourselves, really. We just have to take care of our own business, and we'll have opportunities to knock off some great RPI teams. Memphis, UAB, all those teams are still out there, rich in RPI points. And you have to get through those guys if you want to be on the board at the end. But right now, we got to focus on ECU, Marshall. That's who's next on the plate, and we got to take care of our business there.
Great segue. The road trip up north to first East Carolina, Greenville, and then the bus ride up to Marshall, which we've always talked about before. Sometimes at least in terms of travel, it's kind of a pain, but we still have some volleyball matches that we have to go win up there. Let's first talk real quick about ECU and then Marshall. What are you expecting to see out of those two squads?
Well, I think a lot of people just look at the records and say, oh, wow, that's easy. No way. No. First of all, it's conference. There's pride. And second of all, both those teams are well coached.
Yeah.
And it's like the hungry tiger in the corner. And they're going to start clawing, and you just hope it's not going to be against you. And to think that any team can go into an ECU and a Marshall and they're going to roll over is foolish. We're going to go there and we're going to get a stiff test from both of them.
Yeah.
And
because they're looking to stack up their RPI scores as well.
Absolutely. And we're vastly improved. We're heading in the right direction, but we're not good enough we're not like a Tulsa. We're not like some of these other teams that are so strong across the board that they can just walk in and play. We're not. That's not who we are. We still got to go in and we have to battle for everything that we get. And that's the mentality that we're taking from here on out. I don't care who's next on the schedule. They're getting all of our attention. That's how we're going to roll.
All right, and it's going to be fun to see this weekend as UCF heads up to East Carolina and then Huntington, West Virginia to go take on Marshall. Real quick, as always, make sure you follow those matches on UCFathletics.com. Also follow UCF Volleyball on Twitter at UCF_volleyball, and also search for UCF Volleyball on Facebook. UCF comes back home to play one of them starting against UAB on October 8th. That's when UCF is back home again. So, Coach, once again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And thank you very much for joining us here on Holding Court with Todd Dagenais. We'll catch you when UCF returns from East Carolina and Marshall. Until then, we'll see you next week.